When I first came to Unity Santa Fe in the fall of 2004, one of the first things that Jerry and I did was sign up for Ralph's class, Living Gratitude. And that class really influenced my life in beautiful and lasting ways. And through the many years, Ralph wisely created and facilitated other classes at Unity Santa Fe. He is also the author of our 2020 AIC book, Living as Our Awakened Self, which offers us a simple but not always easy spiritual practice that can put feet on Unity Santa Fe's mission to raise consciousness, transform lives, and heal the planet. Ralph served for many years as the president of Unity Santa Fe Board of Trustees. His professional background includes educator, corporate trainer, and vice president of a New York-based management consulting firm that offered a wide range of performance excellence trainings to major communication and retail industries. Ralph holds undergraduate and graduate degrees in English, as well as a PhD in humanities education from New York University Department of Communication, Arts, and Sciences. Ralph suggests that the most important contribution that each of us can make to humanity is to both express and share our understanding of who we truly are. That is, our essential shared being as perfect peace and love. So please help me welcome our dear Ralph Huber.
Thank you, Carol, for that lovely introduction. And my goodness, Bill, you had me. I tell you, your song was so beautiful. Grateful. I mean, it was like, now, full disclosure here, I flood very easily. So I thought, this is not, wait a minute, I can't start this message, flooding all over my computer. But, and Carol, I wanted to say the opening that you gave for us at the beginning of the service and Brendalyn's kind words were so touching and so meaningful, I think, for all of us in these kind of challenging, uncertain times where, as one person said, they felt like they were on a roller coaster with emotions. And I know I sometimes went kind of up and then a little bit down and up and down. And what we're going to be talking about today is really living as our awakened self, where we still have all the wonderful emotions and variety of experiences that life can offer. And we hold them in this sacred space of yes, thank you. Always yes, always thank you. And Bill, in your song, when you were saying, no matter what terrain that we're going over, be it rough terrain, be it easy terrain, are we going to, if it's rough terrain, moan, or are we going to sing with gratitude? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And the results are in about gratitude, with all the research studies that it improved health, joy in life, happiness. It's all over the board. There's a positive psychology that is the last, 25 years by Martin Seligman that really looks at optimism and gratitude rather than looking at what's wrong with this picture and how do I deal with what's wrong with this picture by trying to figure it out and maybe fighting against it. Whereas now we're really looking at how can I respond in the most effective, loving way to whatever is going on. rather than opposition and make wrong and should and shouldn'ts. And Bill, as you were singing that wonderful song with our friends who are there and the others in our life, there's this one Tibetan master who said that the solution to all our daily problems, I'm going to pause, wonder what you're thinking. The solution to all our daily problems is to cherish one another. Is to cherish one another. And I think that we are going to be moving more and more in that direction of cherishing one another, cherishing ourselves, and cherishing all of life. Brendalyn ended the message last week with a quote from Living as Our Awakened Self. And you know, when I was putting together the title for that, I thought, well, you know, living as the awakened self, living as your awakened self. And I thought, wait a minute, living as our awakened self. Because when we are living our awakened self, that is our shared being. That is who we really are in essence. Even though there may be this appearance of separation and this relative reality, in fact, our awakened self, our true nature of pure awareness, includes everybody and everything. And our awakened self of pure awareness doesn't do any shoulds or shouldn'ts. And so when we do get into shoulds or shouldn'ts about myself, others, or life, then I'm not in resonance with my awakened self. And that's when we have the psychological suffering that we've been talking about the last few weeks here and studying in the book. And when Brendalyn ended last week, she said, or she quoted from the musing that was at the end of part 4 in Living as Our Awakened Self. And she said, the perfect people and circumstances show up in our life in the perfect way and at the perfect time, no exceptions. And that is really living as our awakened self. And perfect meaning in this sense, whole, complete, without division. Doesn't mean fine or good. It means the wholeness of life. And when we're living as our awakened self, that is what we're living. We're living the wholeness of life. And everything is a blessing in our life, even though it may not appear that way. There's a wonderful Tibetan teacher. She was a Zen master, Charlotte Joko Beck. And she had this to say: life is always giving us exactly the teacher we need at every moment. This includes every mosquito, every misfortune, every red light, every traffic jam, every obnoxious supervisor or employee, every illness, every loss, every win, every moment of joy or depression, every addiction, every piece of garbage, every glorious breath, every moment is the guru. And of course, what do you say to someone who's the guru in your life? Do you say, forget it? Or do you say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your support. And, you know, we have many awakened people on this planet. Probably about 38,000 by one estimate by someone who's been studying this for about 12 years, Jeffrey Martin, who has interviewed thousands of awakened people in depth, given them tests, psychology tests, and talked with people who were their friends and in their family. And he was saying that most people, 99.5% of humanity, from his research of the 12 plus decades he's been doing this, dedicating his life, are caught in the narrative self. And what is that narrative self? Well, that's the self. We all know it. It's the voice in our head that is relentless, 65,000 thoughts a day, they estimate, where it's, I like this, I don't like that, this should be happening, this shouldn't be happening. It's our egoic mind that really wants to protect us. So it's not our enemy. It's really wanting to be our friend in a way. However, it's not being a very helpful friend because of all the ways that is looking what is wrong with this picture. You know the woman who, Rhonda Byrne, who did The Secret, which is very, very popular. Her second book, which wasn't as popular, was called Magic. And the whole topic of the book was gratitude, that was the magic to change one's life. And she was saying, no matter what comes into my life, can I say, yes, this is here, and this is what I can be grateful for. Yes, this is here, this is what's happening, and this is what I can be grateful for. And there's this wonderful writing by Julie Keene in Gratitude, A Way of Life. Although illegitimate was stamped on my birth certificate, I am grateful to now know God has no illegitimate children. Although I was physically and sexually abused as a child, I am grateful that I now know my spirit is indestructible. My oldest son, Richard, died when he was 9, and I am so grateful that I now know each soul chooses its earth school experiences, the manner of coming and the manner of going. My second son, Robert, nearly died when he was 2 and suffered brain damage. I felt so much pain watching him struggle with life, but he demanded from me, and time has taught me, unconditional love. Such a great gift. Life doesn't always go up, 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 up. And when I was putting together my thoughts for our message this morning, and I was reflecting on being grateful for everything in one's life, maybe not for the particular circumstance, but for the gifts that it offers. Some of you probably remember around in the early 1980s, Rabbi Harold Kushner wrote a book called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And in that book, he told the story of his son who died at the age, I think, of 13. And he had an illness that prematurely aged him. And in the book, he talked about the blessings that he received from his spiritual community, his family, his friends, the lessons that he learned as he was with his son during those challenging times. And the part of the book that most struck me was when he said, but you know what? If I could have my son back healthy and well, I would give all that up. And yet that was not what life was calling for. So can we hold in one hand our sorrow that we may feel over a circumstance, and in the other hand, some sort of blessing, feeling of gratitude for perhaps that person being in our life, or perhaps the lesson this circumstance is teaching us? I think we've all had experiences in our life when things haven't gone our way. The dissolution of a relationship, loss of a job, something tragic happening to us, maybe health-wise. And yet, when we look back, we see, you know what, that's where my greatest learning was. And I would not want to give that up. I'm here today because of those experiences. I wouldn't be who I am today if it weren't for those experiences. Byron Katie, who I think is one of the 0.5% who is an awakened person, has this to say, which I think pretty much captures what Bill was talking about in his song, in the lyrics in the song. She writes in her latest book, A Mind at Home with Itself, that, and I'll set the stage, she said, you know, if I were charged with a crime that I didn't commit, she said, I wouldn't just sit there and say, oh, this is just the way things are. Life is always glorious. Life is giving me everything I want. She would say, I'd hire the best attorney that money could buy and to defend myself. She said, however, let's say I lost. And as I sat in prison for a crime I didn't commit, there in prison, I would get to see where I was still arguing with reality, if anywhere. If there was something other than gratitude in my mind, I would have the opportunity to question the thoughts that were causing me discomfort. And she ends with this. The worst thing that can happen always, and I underline always, always turns out to be the best thing that can happen. When we're living as our awakened self, of pure awareness, there is no judgment of right, wrong, this is good for me, this is bad for me. It is all what life is providing for me. And Byron Katie has another example that she has in one of her other books where she talks about a time when her daughter was giving birth in a hospital. And apparently it was like on a weekend and it was a small hospital. They weren't staffed very well. And there were complications with the birth. And so there was this alarm and they needed some phone calls to be made. And, you know, Byron Katie just went ahead and did those phone calls, whatever had been made. And then she came back and she was with her in-laws and they were in a lot of distress. And they said, let's pray. Let's pray. And Byron Katie thought, pray? She thought it was odd because she was in this pure awareness. Whatever is happening is what's happening. But she says, well, you know, okay, I'll do that. And so she went and she prayed with them, very sincere, very open-hearted. And she said, and at the same time, you know, I would give my life for my daughter. No question. I love her with all my heart. And she said, but that's not what life was calling for. And so here you have Byron Katie who did what needed to be done in life. And yet I imagine she was much more effective in making the phone calls, doing whatever she needed to do to get the extra help for her daughter, because she wasn't so caught up in this shouldn't be happening. And there's in the fifth part of Living as Our Awakened Self, which is what people will be focused on this week in the soul circles, there's the story of Sono. And I've gotten more positive feedback on this story than any story I've ever told at Unity. And Sono was 150 years ago, was a wonderful Zen master. And anyone who came to her, she had one teaching and one teaching only. People would come with their complaints, the things they were upset about, all the things that maybe weren't going well in their life. And she would say, thank you for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. Now, some people weren't happy to hear that. They wanted, you know, some commiseration and everything else. And it wasn't that she was being unkind. She was simply showing them a way of holding what was going on. And one story that's not in the writings of Living Our Awakened Self, but as a companion story, is that this one man came to Sono And he says, you know, I have been, thank you for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever for over a year now. Over a year I've been doing this. And it's still, the penny still hasn't dropped. You know, I don't understand. And can you guess what her response to this man was? Thank you for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. And for him, then finally, the penny did drop. He finally got it. Wait a minute. This is like always yes, always thank you. And let's see if I can find it real quick here. There's a wonderful Neil Donald Walsh has this. He says, when you're actively choosing to be grateful for everything presenting itself in one's life, and then he adds in parentheses, I do mean everything underlined. It sets up an energetic signature that washes over and impacts the energy of whatever is now arising. And so if we are in that place of gratitude, which is really a path, I'm taking a 45-day program in awakening that Jeffrey Martin, who I mentioned earlier, has online. We're in the last few days of it. And he gives morning and evening exercises. And he got these exercises from all of these studies that he did over all these awakened self individuals who were in pure awareness. And we have gratitude morning and night. And we have other gratitude exercises all through, because that is where an awakened self lives. They live in gratitude. And it's a discipline. And part of it is being vigilant to when we have those should be different thoughts. You know, in the 3-step process that we've got, the first part is to look at those should be different thoughts. I, others' life should be different than they are. And to see how they're an illusion. Because in fact, life is showing up a certain way. And then we say, what would my life be without that thought? Well, I'd be at peace. I'd be my awakened self if I didn't have that thought. And then the second step is to go into gratitude and to ask yourself, how could I respond to this in a more loving, cherishing, efficient way? And what might this be about? Because when you're in gratitude, then you're not tunnel visioned. Then you can go ahead and invite spirit in, and from your awakened self, from our awakened self, you can get the download. Dipa Ma says, a wonderful Tibetan teacher, that the heart knows everything. So when we go into our heart and get up in our heads and all the shoulds and shouldn'ts and that narrative self that's running in there, and to go into our heart, that oneness of who all of us really are, our shared being, then that is where we can get the inspiration. I have to tell you, anytime I've done the 3-step process and I've asked my heart, how might I handle this more efficiently, lovingly, what's this about? I always get the answer. And always it's one of love, compassion, understanding, things that would bring me closer to the person than further apart. And so that's our invitation that we can give each other. Hafez has a wonderful poem that's my favorite, I think, poem of all. And he says, when you sit before an awakened master like me, even if you are a drooling mess, my eyes sing with excitement. They see your divine worth. What would our world be like if even if somebody appears to be a drooling mess, our eyes could sing with excitement and see their divine worth, which is all our divine worth. So he had the eyes of an awakened master, seeing the divine worth. And the divine worth not just in a particular person, but divine worth in all of creation, our shared being. Pierre Pradervan, in The Gentle Art of Blessing, says, there is no state of mind happier, more fulfilled than that of a person who rests in a state of perpetual blessing and gratitude. I like it so much, I'm going to repeat it again. There is no state of mind happier, more fulfilled than that of a person who rests in a state of perpetual blessing and gratitude. And so let's do that now in a sacred time of shared prayer, as Brendalyn says. And I'll be reading the Awakened poem. And as you listen to the poem, hear the parts that particularly talk about gratitude. Let us rest in the perfect peace of who we truly are. Beyond all appearances, all concepts, all notions of a separate self, that narrative self. Beyond all stories of good or bad, right or wrong, praise or blame, loss or gain. With nothing grasped at, nothing pushed away, nothing special nor not special, and no belief that says life should be any different than life is. For nothing in this universe runs amiss, all unfolds perfectly, yes, perfectly of its own accord. Why not then just relax in the mysterious, eternal knowing play of infinite awareness, this pure, unbridled awareness of indivisible love, where no problem can reside, neither lack nor worry, no story-rooted judgment of any suffering kind. For when we rest in absolute awareness, all thoughts that claim some life unfoldment is to us a disadvantage, we clearly see as misguided thinking. In truth, with a capital T, we know ourselves to always be fully loved, fully safe, fully free. And with this knowing, there co-arises a grace of ever-giving thanks. A grace by which we bless again and then again the totality of being, seeing past as many dueling guises to the benevolent harmony within. And with this deep according, pulsing all that is, we can wholly be in communion by fashioning a heart so singly sourced in healing forgiveness and perpetual embrace that all resistance to life as life is humbly surrendered. Thus freed, we may by gift of spirit come to find ourselves awake, absent of illusionary guilt, imposter fear. Now newly birthed, we live afresh in the perfect peace of oneness. This inevitable, not two of oneness, who we truly are. And now, let us rest for a few moments in the perfect peace of who we truly are. Oh, so we've come back to this time and place. And I'd like to end with a poem before I go into special music with wonderful Bill. Poem by Rumi. Before that, I want to say how grateful I am that I could share this with you all. This is so great. I've been able to share some of my favorite passages that I love about gratitude, a topic I so am passionate about and believe in. And so thank you all for that. And so here's Rumi. And the title of the poem is Pay Homage. If God said, Rumi, pay homage to everything that has helped you enter my arms, there would not be one experience of my life, not one thought, not one feeling, not one act that I would not bow to.